Hello everybody! Welcome to an intro to the Oathtakers, which is the second of the two new origins that has come with new Battle Brothers of Flesh and Faith DLC. The other one is the Unanimous, which you can see over here, with this fancy looking man. And I already did a video on that, so if you want to look at the Unanimous, check that video out. First 10 minutes of that are going over, and then the remaining are talking about all of the potions and where I think those potions are going to be useful. So it's a long video, but really you only need the first 10 minutes if you just want to know what's up. Similarly, today we will be looking at the origin for the first maybe like 10 minutes, and then we'll be talking about the boons, or the oaths that you can take for the remaining part. So this video might be a little bit on the longer side, not too long I don't think. But if you just want the in and out information, just 10 minutes. So starting with the Oathtakers. I'm probably going to call them the wrong thing a bunch. There's the Oathtakers and the Oathbringers. I'm probably going to fuck it up and say the Oathbreakers at some point as well. Because that's a thing as well. That's a thing in D&D, and I play D&D. So, let's just look at this. Oathtakers are knightly warriors. You follow this guy, young Anselm, who is your protege of the order, and you have his skull. So you start with two dudes, and you take oaths instead of ambitions. You don't have ambitions, and we'll see what that looks like in a bit. You get a little banner. I guess I didn't do this in the other video. Where is it? Oh, I went like the wrong way, didn't I? That's the Unanimous one. But this is your banner here. That's pretty cool. This is actually might not be a bad thing if you want to pick a late game crisis, because you get to pick several of these oaths, and we'll get into those in a bit. But some of them are like an anti-undead oath or an anti-greenskin oath. So if you know you want to do one of these first, or you want to play with that that oath, you might actually want to pick one of these instead of random, which I go with random every time, but for the sake of this video, we'll do whatever. So the Oathtakers have no fucking money whatsoever. So if you're going expert low, have fun. I think this is a great origin if you like playing on high funds. I don't think economic difficulty is that big of a player compared to other origins. But just starting with 500 crowns is nothing at all. You can't do shit with 500 crowns. So what that means is your first couple of days are just going to be running around taking cargo contracts or really easy fights and kiting third-party enemies in. So if you're not very good at that, I would say you probably have to take a higher starting funds. You can still do like hard economic, but you gotta make the economy a little bit easier on yourself, because I don't want to do this. I think even for myself, I could spend 3 hours of my life going through and doing cargo contracts. I don't want to. So if I played the Oathtakers, I would do a higher starting funds, because I just want to get into the fun part of the game. And for me, that is fights and not, micromanaging the economy. But that being said, this is your origin. Keep in mind, you only have 18 roster. So you start with two dudes, and you get this first guy here. So you actually start with your banner, and you start with this thing here, which is like your Sergeant Sash. So because you don't get ambitions, you can't get the banner or the Sergeant Sash through ambitions, but you get it from the start instead. Just like the Unanimous, you get a new set of armor. You get 110 minus 5, which is pretty good. Normally it's 110 minus 7 or 120 minus 5 for a Sallet. So this is actually a really good helmet. 150 minus 16 is not bad either. I think you have 150 minus 18. So this is a solid set. Then you have this. You get a heater shield and an arming sword. This is great. These are both plus accuracy weapons, and your dudes start out with 60 range skill. Or sorry, melee skill. Still be great. 250 minus 15 is pretty good. I don't really know what the equivalent to that is, but like the barb helm. I think there might be a 250 barb helm. Or I think it's 250 minus 17 or 250 minus 18. So this is a good helmet. 200 minus 22. I think its 210 mail is minus 26, so this is also really good. So if we're just looking at what the dudes have, Oathtakers, I believe, have 60 to 66 HP. 90 to 96 fatigue, like 41 to 49 resolve or something. 57 to 67 melee skill, bad range skill, 8 to 10 or 5 to 10 melee defense, negative 10 to 0 range defense, or the range defense is ass. It's kind of like an adventurous noble, and actually really high initiative, like 100 to 120 initiative. And this is a background you can actually hire outside of this origin right here. So you start with this dude. He's got 213, which means he's a good frontliner. This is 93 right here. This is 33. So 93, 33 is fantastic. Right here, I'd probably make some kind of dodge build. Nimble dodge initiative with the low fatigue and high HP. This is a good character. This guy you'd actually want to take to the late game. You start with a banner. This is a trap. You have minus 10 range defense. Do not ever level range defense on this guy. He starts with negative 10. I think it's an L. He's also got old, which means he has plus 10 resolve, but minus 10 to HP, fatigue, and initiative. So that means he can't really go dodge with low initiative. You also have low HP and low stam. So if you're making a bannerman, you actually can do that because you have high resolve and high melee skill, but you're going to need to pump fatigue and HP along with those two stats, and thus, and maybe some melee defense, so don't ever level range defense. It's really cool, though. If you, like, take this guy and you get him Fortified Mind, and you can get him up to 88, and, like, let's just level really quick. Like, 98 resolve. You have a 98 resolve banner from the get-go, which is huge. This here, like, obviously, I think when you start with a polearm, this is a great advantage for your early game. But I would take this armor and I would give it to some frontliner. Like, you're going to hire, like, a day one farmhand. Give the guy this armor. This bannerman here can sit in the back with 30 mail because he shouldn't get walked on. This, though, the real power of this origin is this guy right here. Who starts with 28 melee defense, 200 armor, and a heater shield. This guy is basically unstoppable at level 1 unless he gets punctured to death. The only way this guy will die in the first 12 to 20 days is if he gets punctured, or you find, like, orcs on a caravan contract, or you fight, like, mercenaries. The only way. This guy can armor tank brigand thugs for days. He can nomad cutthroats for days, barbarian thralls for days, webnecks for days, wolves for days, everything. This guy's a beast. This guy will carry you through the beginning of the game because he actually has pretty good melee defense as well. So you're going to level attack, defense, and HP and stam every time anyway. And he's got the stupid shield. So this guy will just chill. And he's probably better to be nimble, but I'm going to keep him in the heavy armor for a while because he's going to just tank all the fights. And he will be so influential in meaning that you can kind of afford to be a little bit less tactical in your positioning because you know you can always just armor tank. And you can take harder fights because you can just armor tank. Let's go into my current Oathtakers Origin. I just want to comment. I think this name that I came up with is really funny. For my company name, just please read that. I think it's hilarious. But that aside, I've gotten to what is it, day 34? Day 34 with Oathtakers. So, we've got a bunch of, like, shitty dudes. We've kept this guy here, this banner. If you want to watch this really awesome nomad fight that I just did, when I got this armor, well, I just put a video out on that. So let me, just give more dudes items so I can unequip. And so what we have here, 81, 87, 78, minus 15. I don't know why he's got minus 15. Oh, because my, yeah. So we have minus defense here, because of my oath. So don't take the defense stats into consideration. But really good resolve, and then with the banner, this guy is basically a end game bannerman. And I've got this guy to level 7. He's still nimble, but that's 22, remember, because of my oath. So 78, 22 at level 7. This guy's pretty good. And you give him all this stuff, 35. And I've given him dodge as well. That's like 8 initiative, roughly. Or 8 defense he gets, so that's Plus 5 is 40. That's like 48. And this guy's got the hella armor. So he can really tank all these hard fights that you need him to. And like I said, I gave this this other starting armor to another dude. But let me just take a look at my origin. I've got a good amount of crowns because I did a lot of camp busting. On 34 days, started over here, went down, did all this kind of camp busting over here. Got some famed armor, got a famed warhammer, and the crowns were tough at the beginning, but I've kind of gotten to the point where I've got a good amount. Then tools, food, everything else is looking fine. Deaths, not too many deaths. It's definitely hard. This is a hard origin, I think, especially at the beginning, because you have so little crowns and so few people that you're just gonna get fucked in a lot of fights. So I had to not take a lot of fights, and I haven't played this super optimally. It's day 34, and I've only done 40 fights, so my fight density isn't even that high. So better players than I, or people that would take more fights rather than like maximize their IRL time, would be a lot faster than I would. So what I would recommend is get this dude and have him armor tank. Get this guy. This guy can also armor tank 150, 110 on day 1. Super huge. And then you have a good banner. So as long as you get one good recruit, you kind of have like your 3 dudes to carry you through the beginning. And now I want to talk about the oaths, because the oaths you get are really dependent on really influential on how you're going to play. So let's take a look at this oath I have right here. You get it for 10 days. So I just picked this one up. So for 10 days, I have a boon, I have a goal, and then I have a burden. So you get to pick one of 3 oaths that shows up like the ambition thing, and it'll tell you the boon and the burden. So I've currently picked Oath of Wrath, which I think might be my favorite one, like out of all of them. I'm gonna link all of the oaths in a list in the description of the video. But this one gives you plus 15% chance to hit when using two-handed or double-gripped weapons. You always cause fatalities if able. But you lose minus 5 melee defense and 10 range defense. Now, losing 10 range defense is kind of tough. It's kind of tough in the early game, because brigand marksmen are gonna like headshot crossbow you more, and you don't have the armor that much. Nomad archers are gonna get you, so you're gonna take a lot of those fights at night. Doesn't affect you for greenskins that much. Like, I think goblins are probably gonna hit you anyway. You may be fight overseers in the beginning, but like undead are totally the same, orcs are totally the same. Other human enemies are pretty much similar. Barbarians are kind of annoying. Minus 5 melee defense, I don't actually care about that too much. I think I can usually position myself to make 5 melee defense not that big of a deal. Especially because you're getting basically plus 15 fucking melee attack. Plus 15 melee attack when using two-handed and double grip melee weapons is so good. You know why? Because what you're stuck with normally is like using a shitty boar spear to get your plus 20% chance to hit, or even on if this is your first one, you're stuck with a militia spear for plus 20% chance to hit. Well, 15% chance to hit, you can move up from 30 to 35 to 40 to 45, and you still get plus 10%, or you move up to 35 to 55 with a mace or this Kopesh, and you still get plus 15%. So this mace is already better than the sword and shield. It's just better in terms of damage. Because you get the plus accuracy and you still get the increased damage. So what's amazing about this is you can forego shields on a lot of your front line. Like, I can take this cleaver here. I normally wouldn't want to take a two-hander with 72 melee skill, but I'm really at like 87 melee skill, so I would absolutely take this. This dude, he's basically got like 90-something. This is a fighting spear, so it's got good damage, but 68 becomes 83. This here becomes like 91. Still, I have my tanks. This guy has a shield as well. Have my tanks on either side. I do keep a shield on this guy because he's still pretty tanky. To hold the flanks, and yeah, they don't get their plus damage, or their plus hit chance, sorry. But the rest of my guys can, and two-handers means all of your fucking pikemen in the back also get plus 15%. You already have the banner. You're probably going to be able to get a pitchfork at some point. You can find pikes, you can find hook blades. This propels you through the game, because I think the way you lose bros in the early game, I think, is, at least for me, is when I when I've planned something out and then I feel like I lose to RNG or some shit like that. Or like I just can't kill an enemy quick enough. Or like, oh, that's a tough Chosen camp. Can I kill the Chosen in time before they adrenaline murk me? Maybe not. But if you have plus 15% chance to hit, maybe you can kill them. Lets you take Ancient Undead fights too, because they're stupid shield walls, but you just win through them because you have plus 15% chance to hit. Same thing with like guys who are shield walling, like Raiders or Nomads. You can totally get through this so much easier with Oath of Wrath. Oath of Wrath is an amazing thing. It, like, I think really revolutionizes your game. Late game, I don't think it's that as useful because you have the hit chance anyway. I would still love to take it, but I don't think it's as useful. The other ones are going to be much quicker, but I just want to talk about how that one is great. Second one is Oath of Camaraderie, where you take 14 men into battle, and you always start the battle. Each man is either wavering or breaking, which is just randomly decided. I hate this. I don't think I would pick this. Like, I don't think I would ever pick this. TBH. That means you have to spend your first turn with the banner or multiple banners rallying, which means you're kind of stuck. You can't move your banner up all the way. You can't move your men up all the way because you can't let dudes run on you when you're breaking, because they'll just morale check you and you're gonna flee. I don't care if you have 14 men. Play peasants. The second one is Oath of Distinction. Your men gain 40% more experience. Additionally, they get plus 10 resolve, plus 3 fatigue recovery per turn, and plus 10% damage if there's no allies adjacent to them. Those are great things. Your burden, though, is that you get no experience from allied kills. So you only gain experience if you kill somebody. Now, I think that's awful for the early game. If you're leveling, I wouldn't pick this right now. I had this multiple times right now, and I would not pick this because I'm trying to level my entire team up. I can't afford to not have my team level, especially dudes like this. This is like a shitty thrower. This guy's not going to get much. He's got 58 range skill. I can't take him in a lot of fights, especially if it's at night. So he gets a lot of his level ups from just like participating, and if he can't get that, he's not leveling up at all. Late game, amazing, because you don't care about your levels anyway, and at that point, you just want your fatigue, recovery, resolve, and damage. The next one is the Boon of Endurance, or the Oath of Endurance, where you get plus 3 fatigue recovery per turn, so everybody recovers at 18 or 21 with Iron Lungs. And the burden is you can only take 10 men into battle. That's not so bad. If you take this as your first oath, you could probably do that. Fatigue recovery per turn is kind of cool, and the burden isn't so bad. I think the worst thing you can do early game is take an anti-XP oath in the beginning and just kill your XP gain. That's gonna be so just bad for you. Late game, it's good for a challenge, and you might have to be a little more picky with your fights, but it's probably still doable with 10 dudes. Oath of Fortification. You gain 25% less buildup when using shield skills like Shield Wall, Shield Bash. And Knockback also staggers a target when you hit them, which is awesome. The burden is you can't move in the first round of combat. This is troubling. I don't know how I like this. Against some enemies, it doesn't matter. Against like Ancient Undead, against Undead, it doesn't really matter because you go first. So they walk into you. Turn 1, you'd say it's still. Turn 2, you still go first. And thus you back up and they still don't reach you. But if you're fighting like goblins, nomads, orcs, or whatever, they just get 2 turns on you because you can't move up and melee against them. And you can't bring range units to fucking orc fights in the front line. Like, they'll just die. So, and against barbarians, there's a lot of things where I want to be able to move on the first turn. So maybe you put a lot of your dudes in the back line and you keep your tanks up front. I don't really know. I'm not confident I would want to use that too much. The Oath of Honor is one of my other more favorite ones. Your men start at Confident. So if you have 90 melee skill, Confident brings you to 99 because you get plus 10%. So that gives you like +3 levels basically in stats, or +2 levels, 2.5 levels in terms of melee attack and melee defense. Or more like melee attack. But the burden is you can't use ranged weapons. Now I don't care too much about this. I've played campaigns where I don't use ranged weapons and it works fine. I use a lot of polearms in the back. I use a lot of adrenaline. I use a lot of like Pathfinder builds to manipulate, and that works fine. That's fine. And throwers are amazing, and it would make your life easier. But if you don't use ranged weapons for 10 days, that's fine. You can just use reserves. It's probably also kind of easy early game if you don't use throwers. If you already don't use ranged weapons early game, then it's fine. I would just take this. The Oath of Humility is probably the best one for your first, or Oath of Wrath, probably the best one for your first oath. You gain 10% more experience, but you gain 25% fewer crowns for contracts. Now, in the beginning, you earn 200 crowns for doing a cargo contract. 25% of that is 50 crowns. You've lost 50 crowns. I don't give a shit about 50 crowns. Now, if you're playing on low starting funds, expert economic difficulty, you do gain less, so you're hurt more, but you're also earning less. Instead of 200, you're earning like 150, so 25% of that is 30 crowns. So you're losing, that's not true. It's like 33 crowns or some bullshit like that. 35 crowns, maybe. You're not losing a whole lot, so you're actually losing less, like number-wise, although the number is a little bit more important to you. But I still think that gaining experience and leveling your dudes up is way more important than the contract could ever be. Because again, the issue is you're not taking a minus XP oath, you're taking a plus XP oath, so I think it's better than some of the other options just by virtue of it's not minus XP. The Oath of Sacrifice is one that I had for a while, and that was a pretty good one for me. That's how I was able to go through the wilds over here, because it means your men do not take any crowns as wage, so you're not paying. These Oathtakers take a fair bit of money, 44.40. So I'm paying like 283 crowns. So let's say this is like a 10-day journey. It's like 2,000 crowns. I didn't take. It wasn't 10 days, but even still, it's like 1,000 crowns for 5 days. That's 1,000 crowns I just saved. The burden, though, is your men don't heal injuries. Now, I went through this. I played multiple orc camps, like mini Sea of Tents, like day 20-something warriors, orc warriors and young, and ancient undead. I didn't really suffer any injuries. The only injuries I suffered that entire time were like a tank got hit on 2 8s in a row by like 2-handers. He got an injury. Some other guy got kind of RNG'd. A lot of shit that I probably couldn't really account for. And other than that, I was fine. So I'm a moderate player, so I think I could do that fine. If you are learning the game, this is kind of tough, because not healing injuries means that you are effectively losing brothers over time. And if you have a brother who already has an injury, they won't heal. So if they're already out, they're like going to stay out for 10 days, which is a lot. The Oath of Valor is really bad for early game. Your men will never flee, but you earn 15% less experience. So I've already kind of talked about all of this. Less experience is something you can't take the early game. Late game, obviously, it's really good because you don't care about experience. Never fleeing is great for Monolith because you'll never need to get morale checked by fearsome ancient undead. So I would take that late game. Oath of Dominion. Oath of Dominion, Righteousness, and Vengeance are basically the same thing. You get plus 15%. You get plus Resolve and plus melee and range skill when fighting beasts or undead or greenskins for the 3 things. But for all of them, I give you, if you take Vengeance, it's plus all that stuff against greenskins and minus that against every other foe. So like plus 10 melee skill against goblins, minus 5 melee skill against humans, beasts, undead, etc. And then the other ones are the same thing for the other types of enemies. Those are cool. Like I said, they're good for the crises. And Oath of Righteousness, the undead one, is certainly good for the Black Monolith. Oath of Dominion, maybe it's probably good against. It's probably really good against Kraken because plus 10 melee skill gives you plus 10% chance you don't take you pass the break free of the Kraken ability, or the break free of the Krakens. I would never use that otherwise. Like, I don't fight enough beasts to warrant taking -10 resolve and 5 in melee and range skill against everything else. Like, that's just bad. But take it against Kraken, that's probably the only time I'd ever want that. Righteousness, the undead one, going against Monolith, going against like the Reichgeist, and all those other fights. I guess the minions good against Idrock too, but whatever. And the Orc one, good against Sea of Tents, I guess good against Goblin City. That's probably where those are good for, and maybe during the crises as well. So overall, I think the takeaways from this are: don't take minus experience in the early game. Probably take like the Crowns one, or maybe the Injury one, or Oath of Wrath. Late game, the experience ones definitely don't matter because everybody's already leveled, or if they do, you can just like focus power level 1 guy, and that's not so bad. And then a lot of the other things turn out to be pretty cool. I think most of them don't really change how I play. Like, this one is nice, but am I playing drastically different than I would be if I didn't have this? Not super much. Like, this one basically just gives me stat points. The experience ones also kind of just give me stat points, or they add little, like, passive modifiers to things. So I'm not a huge fan of this ambition. Sorry, of this origin. I think the really cool thing is starting with this male and this male, and then seeing how that lets me propel the early game a little bit better, but I'm held back by low crowns. So really, I feel like it's cool on a high crowns, high starting funds, and then just seeing like how quickly you can progress. I think the Anatomist is more unique of an origin. I still like this one a lot, but I think the Anatomist is more my play style. So if you want to see me stream the Oathtakers, I'll be doing that in the upcoming days. I think I'll probably get that schedule out. And if you want to see me talk about Anatomists, you can check that video out there. I hope you guys enjoyed this, found this useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.